There's a traffic jam on Mount Everest, not on the road to it, on it. At 28,000 feet in the death zone, where your brain starts swelling, your fingers blacken with frostbite, and every breath feels like you're drowning in thin air, there's a line of people waiting for their turn to summit the world's tallest peak. Why? Because climbing Everest has become less about the mountain and more about the money. For the ultra-wealthy, Everest is the ultimate status symbol. It's not enough to own a yacht anymore. Now, you need a photo on the roof of the world. But here's the catch. They don't climb it. They buy it. With deluxe packages, private chefs, heated tents, and teams of Sherpas carrying their bags like personal butlers in a vertical 5-star hotel. And it's killing people, literally. We're gonna take you inside a world where ego trumps safety, where selfies cost lives, and where a sacred mountain has become a playground for people who don't even know how to strap on crampons. Everest used to be a place for explorers. Now it's a backdrop for Instagram. As Reinhold Messner, the first person to climb Everest without bottled oxygen, once put it, mountains aren't fair or unfair. They're just dangerous. But what happens when the danger isn't the mountain? It's the people? Stick around. Because once you see what's really happening up there, you'll never look at Everest or the people climbing it the same way again. Once upon a time, summiting Everest was something only the boldest, most seasoned climbers even considered. It took years of training, planning, and an almost sacred respect for a mountain that could kill you with a single gust of wind. Today, if you've got a fat bank account and a midlife crisis, you too can conquer Everest. No ice axe required. Let's talk money. Climbing Everest now costs upwards of $100,000. That's more than most people make in a year, and that's the base package. For a little extra, you can upgrade to a private helicopter ride to base camp, gourmet meals at 17,000 feet, and a heated tent with satellite Wi-Fi. Hey, real quick, when was the last time you did something unforgettable? Viator makes it crazy easy to book real adventures. Everest Base Camp, Kilimanjaro, Tokyo, everything. I actually used it myself, and no joke, best decision I've ever made. Don't just watch other people live life, go live yours. Links below. Because nothing says man versus nature like scrolling through Instagram at the foot of a glacier. These aren't climbers in the traditional sense. They're clients, tourists in down suits. Everest has become the world's highest theme park ride. You buy a ticket, you get in line, and someone else does the work to get you to the top. The adventure isn't earned anymore, it's outsourced. And the people doing the heavy lifting? Sherpas, local guides who climb the mountain multiple times in a single season, setting up ropes, carrying loads twice their body weight, and risking their lives so wealthy climbers can sip hot tea in a windproof dome. One Sherpa once joked, "We climb Everest to help people find themselves." Then he paused and added, "And sometimes we carry them back down too." But behind the laughs, it's deadly serious. These guides are often paid a fraction of what their clients spend on a single pair of boots. And they're the ones walking into avalanches first, crossing crevasses first, hauling oxygen tanks while the people behind them gasp for air and say things like, "Wow, this is harder than SoulCycle." Everest has gone from an expedition to an experience package, from a test of human limits to a luxury checklist item. This shift isn't just about money, it's about mindset. Because when people treat Everest like a product instead of a place, bad things start to happen. In May 2019, the world got a glimpse of what happens when too many people with too little experience and too much money all try to summit Everest at the same time. The result? One of the deadliest seasons on record. There were photos, maybe you've seen them, of climbers lined up like it was Black Friday at 29,000 feet. Dozens of bodies stacked on a single ridge, waiting hours in sub-zero temperatures, barely moving. One man ran out of oxygen while standing still. Another collapsed to his steps from the top. 11 people died that season, most from something tragically avoidable: overcrowding. And here's the wildest part. It wasn't a freak accident, it was math. Too many climbers, not enough time. The death zone above 8,000 meters is named that for a reason. Your body is literally dying up there, cell by cell. Every minute counts. But when 100 people are bottlenecked at the Hillary step, no one's moving. No one's safe. One climber, Thomas Becker, described the scene as Lord of the Flies on Ice. He had 6 of his 8 oxygen bottles stolen before the final summit push. Yes, stolen. At 28,000 feet, where every breath is a battle, someone took his lifeline. On his way up, He passed 5 corpses. One of them was still dangling in his harness. There were fights breaking out on the ridge, people shouting over who got to go up first, who had waited longer, who was descending and needed space. Meanwhile, rescue teams couldn't even reach those in danger because the route was so congested. Think about that. People were dying, and no one could get to them because of traffic. All of this could have been prevented. But the truth is, once Everest became a bucket list item for the elite, the mountain stopped being the problem. The people did. And as more people pay to reach the top, Everest is paying the price. Literally. It's drowning in garbage. Not metaphorically, actual garbage. At base camp, the ice is melting faster due to climate change. And with it comes a surprise no one asked for. Human waste. Piles of it. Sliding downhill like some cursed brown avalanche. Discarded tents, food wrappers, oxygen canisters, torn flags. Everest is starting to look less like a sacred summit and more like the aftermath of a music festival at 29,000 feet. On one cleanup expedition, teams hauled down over 200,000 pounds of trash. That's like dragging down a commercial airplane, piece by piece, off a mountain. And some guiding companies, get this, they cut the logos off their tents before leaving them behind, just to avoid being blamed. That's not just careless, that's calculated. What once stood as a pristine symbol of nature's brutal beauty is now littered with the leftovers of luxury. Everest has become the world's highest garbage dump, and not because of poverty, but because of wealth. See, the climbers paying top dollar often expect top-tier treatment. When things get tough, some of them ditch their gear and move on. After all, they've already paid for the summit shot, right? What's a little environmental destruction if you've got the perfect selfie? But the trash isn't just ugly, it's dangerous. Discarded ropes freeze into death traps. Empty oxygen tanks block narrow paths. And human waste? It's contaminating water sources for the local communities down below. One Sherpa said, "We used to worship this mountain. Now we clean up after it." And that's the price of turning Everest into a commodity. When you buy a mountain like you'd book a beach resort, you don't leave with respect. You leave with garbage in your wake. And while the mountain chokes under garbage, there's another group being pushed to the edge, the Sherpas. These are the people doing the hardest, most dangerous work on Everest, often for the lowest pay. They cross the Khumbu icefall in the dead of night, carrying ladders, fuel, oxygen, and tents for climbers who sometimes can't even carry their own backpacks. They're the ones climbing Everest multiple times per season, while most clients are gasping through it once. And yet, when things go wrong, when weather turns, when oxygen runs out, when climbers freeze mid-step, guess who gets called in to rescue them? The Sherpas. It's like sending a plumber to fix a nuclear meltdown. These men aren't just guides, they're lifelines. But when you turn Everest into a high-end tour, they become part of the package. Not partners, not heroes, help. And all of this, every bottlenecked summit, every frozen selfie, every Sherpa carrying a CEO's espresso machine adds up to something that hurts even more than the trash or the traffic. It erodes the soul of Everest. This mountain isn't just rock and ice. To the people of Nepal and Tibet, it's sacred. Known as Chomolungma, the mother goddess of the world, Everest has been revered for generations. Early climbers knew this. Hillary and Norgay didn't just climb her, they respected her. They asked for forgiveness before setting foot on her slopes. Hillary even stayed behind after his ascent to build schools and help local communities. Today, most climbers don't know the name Chomolungma. They don't ask permission, they ask for Wi-Fi. Some bring Bluetooth speakers, one even brought a drone. Imagine that, blasting electronic music while standing on the shoulder of a goddess. Jamling Tenzing, son of Tenzing Norgay, once said his father would be shocked by what Everest has become. Not because people are climbing it, that's what mountains are for, but because why they're climbing it has changed. He talked about seeing people on the slopes who didn't know how to put on crampons. People who had trained less for Everest than they had for a 5K fun run. People who weren't chasing adventure, they were chasing clout. And it's not just disrespectful, it's dangerous. Climbing Everest isn't a guided museum tour. It's a battle against altitude, cold, exhaustion, and death. But when you treat it like a vacation package, you forget the rules, you forget the risk. And worst of all, you forget the reason. This isn't just a pile of snow for your TikTok reel. It's a sacred mountain, older than any of us, demanding respect. And when that respect disappears, so does everything that made Everest meaningful in the first place. Back in the day, climbing Everest meant something. It was raw. It was terrifying. It was real. You didn't do it for likes or merch drops. You did it because the mountain called you and you answered with everything you had. But somewhere along the way, that spirit got lost, replaced by sponsored jackets, corporate bragging rights, and timed summit selfies. Today, you're more likely to hear someone boast about their summit on a podcast than in a base camp tent. Legendary climber Peter Habeler once said, "It's peanuts, climbing surrounded by Sherpas and using oxygen." You cheat the mountain. And he's right. These days, people aren't climbing Everest for the adventure. They're climbing to be the first something. The first influencer, the first grandma, the first guy to play saxophone on the summit. What's next? The first dog in a tuxedo? Everest isn't a challenge anymore. It's a checklist. And when the world's tallest mountain becomes a marketing gimmick, the real adventure dies. So the question becomes, can Everest be saved from us? There are solutions. Some controversial, some necessary. Capping the number of climbing permits, requiring climbers to prove experience, not just produce a credit card. Banning luxury add-ons like personal chefs and portable espresso bars, raising Sherpa wages, enforcing stricter cleanup regulations, maybe even, brace yourself, removing Wi-Fi. Because climbing Everest should be hard, it should be uncomfortable, it should be a test of your body, your mind, and your soul, not your wallet. Andy Cave, a seasoned mountaineer, once said, "Staying alive is more important than reaching the summit." But for too many Everest clients, it's not about staying alive. It's about being seen. And that mindset, it's what's killing the mountain. But here's the thing, Everest doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care if you're a hedge fund billionaire, a tech CEO, or the guy who invented an app that tells you where the nearest oat milk latte is. Up there, above 8,000 meters, no amount of money can buy you more oxygen, more time, or more mercy. The mountain is the great equalizer. It strips away the illusion. It doesn't matter if you flew first class to Kathmandu. On the ridgeline, you're just another speck in the snow trying not to die. And maybe that's the lesson we keep ignoring, that some places aren't meant to be conquered. They're meant to be respected, not climbed for clout, but honored for their mystery, their danger, and their power. Because when you treat Everest like a business, you turn something sacred into something hollow. And when the mountain stops being a place of meaning, we're the ones who lose. So here we are, at the top of the world, staring down a hard truth. Mount Everest hasn't changed. We have. What was once the ultimate symbol of human grit has become a high-altitude photo op. The climbers have changed, the motives have changed, and the consequences have gotten deadlier. Everest used to demand everything from you. Now it's become something you can swipe a credit card for, like ordering adventure off a menu. But here's the good news. We can still turn this around. We can stop treating the mountain like a bucket list backdrop and start treating it like what it truly is, a natural wonder, a sacred space, and a brutal, beautiful force that doesn't care about your net worth. So if you're thinking about climbing Everest, ask yourself one question. Not, can I afford it, but do I deserve it? Because Everest doesn't need more tourists. It needs more respect.